Hello, everyone. So you've just finished reading the first 15 pages of The Road, and you might be feeling a little bit confused by some of McCarthy's stylistic choices. He is not an easy writer to understand, so I'm hoping that this lecture will help you understand some of his stylistic choices as we make our way through this novel. So let's look at the first paragraph. When he woke in the woods in the dark and the cold of the night, he'd reach out to touch the child sleeping beside him. Nights dark beyond darkness, and the days more gray, each one than what had gone before, like the onset of some cold glaucoma dimming away the world. His hand rose and fell softly with each precious breath. He pushed away the plastic tarpaulin and raised himself in the stinking robes and blankets and looked toward the east for any light, but there was none. In the dream from which he'd wakened, he had wandered in a cave where the child led him by the hand, their lights playing over the wet flowstone walls, like pilgrims in a fable swallowed up and lost among the inward parts of some granitic beast. Deep stone flues where the water dripped and sang, tolling in the silence the minutes of the earth and the hours and the days of it and the years without cease, until they stood in a great stone room where lay a black and ancient lake, and on the far shore a creature that raised its dripping mouth from the rimstone pool and stared into the light with eyes dead white and sightless as the eggs of spiders. It swung its head low over the water as if to take the scent of what it could not see. Crouching there pale and naked and translucent, its alabaster bones cast up in shadow on the rocks behind it, its bowels, its beating heart, the brain that pulsed in a dull glass bell. It swung its head from side to side and then gave out a low moan and turned and lurched away and loped soundlessly into the dark. So at the start of the book, you'll note that McCarthy's writing style lacks punctuation in some places, as well as using words that at times might even require a dictionary. For instance, alabaster bones or shining white bones. But his style reflects his subject matter. His dialogue is truncated, meaning shortened. His sentences are worn thin, like the barren world itself. And that is very much his intention. He wants his writing style to reflect this dying world. He wants the reader to feel this lack of vitality and life in this environment. Let's look at the second paragraph. With the first gray light, he rose and left the boy sleeping and walked out to the road and squatted and studied the country to the south. Barren, silent, godless. He thought the month was October, but he wasn't sure. He hadn't kept a calendar for years. They were moving south. There'd be no surviving another winter here. So in the second paragraph, you see that there is little luxury for long developed sentences, excepting in some of the more poetic passages like in paragraph 1, that dream sequence. So don't worry, the book mostly reads like paragraph 2. It's not all a slog like paragraph 1. I think paragraph 1 is beautiful, but it's very difficult. So let's look at some of the figurative language in that first paragraph. McCarthy compares the gray world to glaucoma. So he states, the gray world is like the onset of some cold glaucoma dimming away the world. So this is a beautiful simile. It's harsh, but beautiful. So just as glaucoma destroys one's eyes in a cloudy haze, this world's environment is similarly destructive and gray. And in the second paragraph, we see another simile, where the man and the boy are compared to pilgrims. And McCarthy states, they were like pilgrims in a fable swallowed up and lost among the inward parts of some granitic beast. So this second quote about pilgrims relates the father and son's journey or pilgrimage and brings in themes of spirituality. So the father and son seek salvation in a world where salvation may not exist. So this could be seen as somewhat ironic, however, due to their world repeatedly being alluded to and sometimes described as being devoid of God. Indeed, throughout this novel, multiple characters will tell the man and the boy that there is no God, that their world lacks divinity, meaning that there would be no real objective in endeavoring on a pilgrimage for the man and the boy. There's no reason to go on a pilgrimage if salvation doesn't await at the end. So perhaps there is no Mecca that lies at the end of this pilgrimage. Perhaps all that awaits the man and the boy is more suffering. Let's look at some more language in the first few pages. Early on in the book, McCarthy states of the father, he knew only that his child was his warrant. He said, "If he is not the word of God, God never spoke." So for the father, the boy is the only thing that keeps him going. He's the only thing that gives the father hope. God speaks through the boy to give the father's life meaning. If something were to happen to the boy, the father would simply give up. So, regardless of whether or not you're religious, this is a fantastic line that wonderfully encapsulates the boy's importance to the man. Let's look at this second quote. Then they set out along the blacktop in the gunmetal light, shuffling through ash, each the other's world entire. So, as for this second quote, as the world has gone to destruction, it seems that it is a natural progression for the only person left in one's life to become their sole focus, as the son has for the father. So as the novel moves on, it becomes apparent that there is humanity outside of this father-son relationship in this world, but the father and son are going to fail to see it, maybe because they're scared or paranoid of human contact. So the father-son relationship in this novel is unlike the stereotypical father-son relationship. While the father is still instructive and proud of his son, he also fails to instill optimism and hope in his son. The child asks, "Are we going to die?" And his father replies, "Sometime, not now." This is a really honest answer, but it could also be perceived as a little bit negative. So in a world where there's little or no hope for going on, the father doesn't really give his son much incentive to continue through the world happily. So as you read through this novel, I want you to look deeper into the relationship of the father and the son, and I want you to consider how the father protects his son from danger, but also how the son in some ways protects his father and keeps his father going. So the first section of the dialogue in The Road sets up the conversation style for the rest of the novel while also establishing this detached and strange relationship between the boy and his father. So let's look at this first piece of dialogue in this section right here. Then he opened his eyes. "Hi, Papa," he said. "I'm right here." "I know." So the boy's reply, "I know," expresses how the father lingers as a constant presence in the boy's life. He's always there, but the father's never that close to the boy. So this section of dialogue represents how the father is keeping himself a distance from the boy in order to disconnect the boy from his own humanity. If the boy becomes too soft, he will not survive in this world. The boy, in contrast, symbolizes everything that is human, everything that comprises humanity. The boy is constantly searching for and asking for comfort, and he wants his father to see the goodness in the world, the goodness in the people he meets. But the man still remains in this disconnected state because he feels that the only way to survive is to be tough. He later even states, "If only my heart were stone." And the boy is left with only the knowledge that his father is right there. And that's all the security that the boy can hope for in this world. He doesn't get words of love, he just gets reassurance of his father's presence. McCarthy also employs arcane words. Grike is an arcane word or an old word that describes a deep fissure, crack, or divide in a slab of stone. So the father and boy are descending into a crack in the earth itself. I never said this book would be easy. So McCarthy also messes around with syntax. He employs a lot of broken sentences. So his straw hat is missing a verb and a predicate, for instance. But McCarthy is a master of prose. And this style is actually really stylistically beautiful. However, when it comes to your own writing, you must first understand the rules of grammar and syntax before you start to tear those structures down. So don't start breaking up your sentences like McCarthy has until you've mastered those sentences first. So this book is going to ask some very thought-provoking philosophical questions. And the central question among those Many questions this book will ask is, what is the true nature of man? Is man ultimately good, or is man ultimately evil? And ultimately, will good prevail over evil in our world? So this is very much a theological journey that the man and boy are about to undertake. This book is also a moral statement. It's going to teach us the importance of taking care of the ones that we love, the importance of taking care of the natural world, about appreciating its fragility, its beauty, because it might one day disappear. And it's also going to teach us the value of society and civilization. Hopefully, this book will make us want to cherish and protect the order and civilization that we currently enjoy. And finally, this book is a warning. We need to take action so that our world doesn't end up like the terrible world in the road. And I know that the first 15 to 30 pages of this book are a little slow. The novel does start out slowly, but there are some scenes that will have you on the edge of your seat, turning the pages as fast as you possibly can. So bear with me. The first hour of the book is slow, but it's going to turn into a real page turner. So I hope you enjoy our continued reading of The Road. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you next class.